Hey there, I'm Miska and welcome to Hitscan. Project A hype is in full swing and I've got a video summarizing heroes and abilities, maps, weapons and gunplay impressions, and just a bunch of really interesting things that I think most people have actually missed. The sources for this video are first AlphaCast, a good friend of Ryan and I who we've made videos with on this channel actually in the past. That was at the Project A event in Dublin. Noki, a German streamer who was also at that same event and answered a bunch of things on stream in German. And Orb, or Joel, or Incredible Orb formerly, Twitch streamer and fellow Swede who is also one of those lucky people that got to go to Dublin and play Project A. First section, heroes and abilities. Rather than go through every single ability and such in Project A that we've seen so far, I wanted to focus on what these abilities actually mean and how they work fully and summarize that as quickly as possible. Noki on Twitch said that, I think to fully utilize and master the abilities of the characters, you need to spend a lot of time with a specific character. Most likely you'll need to focus on one or two characters and grind those a while whilst not playing others. This is answered in German on a stream, so the translation might be a bit rough. Either way, moving on, there are no classes but rather some characters that can be more aggressive, defensive or supporting depending on their abilities. When I talked to AlphaCast about abilities as well, he also added that abilities are an absolute blast to toy around with and will lead to very high skill ceiling, higher than CSGO in my opinion. It adds a ton of creativity, which I thought sounded really good and I was a bit surprised to actually hear that straight away. He elaborated a bit about ability usage and said, one important thing is cast time is very slow on spells, so you can't really use them as a reaction, or very few of them at least. Very often you get killed while using an ability. As a beginner, there was a match where I focused on placement and gunplay and barely used any ability, and I did way better than any other map where I tried to play with spells a lot. So this sounds great in my opinion, as it lines up very well with the grenades in Counter-Strike, but expanded in a way that can mean higher risk but also greater reward, which definitely contributes to a high skill ceiling where you're not just limited to what a grenade can do, but rather what that ability that the devs have created offers for the character. You can also see in the trailer that we got initially, for example, that they try to use abilities a little bit too close together when another animation is going, and you can't just cancel that animation with another ability here, it seems, as it pops up on screen with this prompt. In terms of how abilities are sort of classified or valued, Noki added this. The ability's nature isn't that you eliminate a player just like that. They're of a tactical nature to take key points of the map or defend them, etc. The shuriken ability, I assume it means the throwing knife or the kunai ability here, as that's the one that was referenced from the video, is an ultimate ability from one of the characters. I managed to find a UI element in the trailer here for the game featuring the abilities of this character, the wind character as most people call them right now. So here's a bit of a closer look at the kunai or throwing knife style ability from the Project A trailer. You use it maybe 2 to 3 times in a match according to Noki here, but this was a little bit unclear if you meant just abilities in general or the ultimate, but I assume the ultimate. You do not have it permanently, so just like the other abilities, to utilize an ultimate in a way that it wins you the round is ultra difficult. The ultimate doesn't straight up say that you won the round. Obviously ultimates are stronger than normal abilities, but not to the point where bam, everyone's dead. In case you missed the previous video we made or some of the info that was first dropped about Project A, you have to actually buy abilities at the start of each round. So you just have an in-game economy and you buy abilities like you buy grenades in Counter-Strike, for example, at the start of each round, and then they're cleared and you have to buy them again if you want to use them once more. Hopefully that gives you a better insight into sort of how the abilities work. If somewhat Noki said here sounded a bit odd, it's because it's translated from German into English and then shared on Discord and Reddit, so whilst there's a VOD with all this info, I can't translate it from German to English myself well enough to correct that wording. I'll quickly add this mention from AlphaCast here as well though, where he told me that abilities have a high possibility of combos between characters, which is something I was happy to hear, as I was a bit worried about that. I wasn't sure if that was really gonna be a focus in Project A or not, but ability combos between characters definitely adds a lot to skill ceiling, team composition and other things like that. To finish off this section with abilities, here is Twitch streamer Orb, fellow Swede, who was also at the event in Dublin for Project A, and his take on ability usage in the game.
You don't have to use any abilities. Like I said in one of my tweets, I did many rounds where I just kind of just like, I didn't need to use my abilities, and I just like, we won round after round we won, got 3-4 kills. You don't need to use abilities all the time. You can strip that down to like, well, you're new to the game, so maybe you're focusing really hard and just like the basics of the game, which is a fair point.
And it's interesting he added that last part about ability usage here as a new player, as that was exactly what I was thinking when first hearing about people's impressions. Maybe they weren't using them as much just because they were kind of newer to the game and just didn't really have it in the back of their head the whole time. As we go on and play the game more, I'm sure people will just get more used to using abilities, kind of like in Overwatch where you go from low ranks to Grandmaster. You get very sort of different ability usage, different combos, and just more creative and aggressive ways of using abilities, and sometimes even very map-specific ways. I wanted to create a separate section for weapons here, just to show off some of the ones we've seen so far. Generally, we've heard most people who have played the game mention that we mostly see traditional firearms with a slightly more futuristic look to them, but nothing too sci-fi or something taken in a completely different direction. Both Noki, Henry G, and I believe also Vadim, the Russian journalist, also mentioned how the time to kill is low, featuring one-shot headshots from most weapons, with the whole feel of Gunplay being similar to how Counter-Strike does it. It seems like the way to get kills in Project A are basically through either the abilities that are character specific or weapons that everyone can buy on both attacking and defending sides, with no generic grenades for everyone or other things thrown in there. And in terms of how the weapons function, Project A features aim punch, potentially if you don't have armor or helmet like in CSGO, I would assume, but that part is just a guess. Either way, when you get hit, you basically flinch backwards or something along those lines. And you also slow enemies when you hit them with bullets, just like in Counter-Strike. That's about it for this section though, but I'll have some more details on what people thought of the feel of the gunplay, where it differs from Counter-Strike and such towards the end of this video in the impression section. Map design and features. We really don't have a lot to go on here in terms of map design and features, but here's a quick rundown of the general idea of how they're laid out. According to pretty much all the info from playtesters so far, Project A has an A and B site on every map where you either plant or defuse a bomb. The game is at best out of 24 rounds total, meaning that the first team to reach 13 rounds wins the match, or you potentially draw at 12-12 with no word on a potential overtime mechanic so far. Personally, I'd love to see that though, and I feel like they'd have, at least for esports level matches, an overtime mechanic of some sort, as you can't have draws in some games there. So I'm sure it's going to be present in some way, just not exactly how, or where rather. According to streamer Orb, we'll recognize the Counter-Strike style layouts of maps though, a lot of 3 lanes maps and one route to each bomb site with a middle route that kind of connects the two. But some maps are a bit different. There was also this Twitch clip I captured with some interesting comments here. Check this out.
You'll have 2 sites and you'll have one way to go to A, one way to go to B. You have a middle that kind of connects the two. Out of the maps that we played, it's familiar, but they also have some interesting additions. Some interesting additions on maneuvering the map. It has some really interesting ways of which I don't think I've seen before.
Now, I actually asked AlphaCast about this in Twitter DMs, and all in all, it seems like talking more about that could be violating the NDA that playtesters signed, but Alpha did say that he felt like he had seen this type of mechanic in other games before. This video is a bit too long to keep speculating about what this way of traversing the map could be, but feel free to go wild in the comments about that stuff. Other than this though, Orb was asked a few times on stream about how the maps looked and flowed, and the short summary is that maps are pretty similar to what we saw in that first trailer. Bare bones, stripped away of clutter, easy to look at and spot enemies around with cool map design elements that change gameplay, but not in a chaotic or distracting type of way. I believe Orb also said that it felt pretty old school Counter-Strike in a way, but I couldn't find my Twitch clip for that quote. Either way, hopefully that gives you a better idea of how the maps are laid out and what you can expect there. More Counter-Strike, not really Overwatch maps. Finally, other impressions from playtesters to try and tell a better story about the gameplay. First off, this quote from Noki answering questions about peeking around corners in Project A versus CSGO, as it's some of the best gameplay insight we have so far. To give some context, Noki is an ex-CSGO pro, but he's got a lot of experience with Counter-Strike. Here goes. When talking about aiming, he said, "The feeling is roughly like CSGO, but somehow more direct. Not sure how to explain it. I think it's just a feeling thing when you play a game. You can kind of imagine it like the comparison of the deagle between Source and CSGO. When shooting with the deagle in CSGO, it always feels like you're either lucky or unlucky. In Source, you aim at somebody's head and he's down. That's how you can more or less picture it. Anyway, moving on. It doesn't mean that the hitboxes are larger, rather I simply feel as if it enters more easily. I don't really know what he means by that last bit, but hey, it sounds like he enjoyed the gunplay anyway, so yeah. He also added, it plays extremely smooth, and if you hold an angle somewhere with a sniper, then the enemy can't simply do a quick drive-by and destroy you. For example, you're on Mirage aiming with the AWP and suddenly a deagle bolts past and gives you a headshot. Stuff like this won't happen. Naturally, you can still pre-fire, but you won't just die and then the enemy comes around the corner or crap like that. This sounds great to me, as whilst just quickly shoulder or jiggle picking a corner in CSGO can be useful to get information without a higher risk of dying, it's also a pretty frustrating thing to deal with on the receiving end. There have been mentions of how just walking around in Project A is a bit slower than in Counter-Strike at times, so it could be that it's just the base movement speed of the character that kind of limits the extreme jiggle picking in Project A compared to Counter-Strike. But as there has also been word of 120 Hz high tick rate servers, I imagine the combination of these two factors is kind of what makes for the gameplay difference, both the way the movement works and the netcode there. As many people actually ask this in some comment sections here and there and on Twitter, Noki also added that you can strafe hop, bunny hop, strafe jump, you can do all that stuff. And he also said that some of the movement and gunplay might have actually felt even better as they were potentially on a LAN connection when trying this with essentially no ping added. If you made it this far in this video, then you're probably very hyped for Project A, and I wanted to give you a final bit of advice. We asked AlphaCast, what should you do if you want to prepare for Project A and be as ready as you can possibly be? And he said the following. Play a shit ton of CSGO, get used to positioning, aiming, diffuse game mode, with just a bit of Rainbow Six and Overwatch, and you'll be all set. As someone who's got about 1,000 hours in Counter-Strike, about 600 hours in Rainbow Six Siege, and I don't know how many hours, a lot of time in Overwatch, I feel like I'm pretty ready for this game, so yeah, bring it on. Yeah, that's everything for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Now you know a little bit more about what Project A is as a game, how it feels, how it plays, and what you can expect for when it comes out. It'll be free to play and it should be available this year, it seems like, with all this talk. And I'd be surprised if it's not sooner rather than later. Alright, that's everything for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and yeah, we'll see you guys next time. I'm hyped for Project A, and we'll get to some gameplay when we got some. Goodbye.